Today we're going to talk about second declension nouns. And if we remember from last time, declining means putting nouns in their different cases. So let's review our cases. We use the nominative case in Latin for the subject of the sentence. We use the genitive case for possession, and we translate it of plus the noun. We use the dative case for the indirect object, and we translate it to or for plus the noun. We use the accusative case for the direct object in a sentence. And the ablative case has many uses, but for the most part it will be used as the object of the preposition. Now the second declension encompasses two different genders, and we're going to talk about each of them separately. We're going to start with our second declension masculine. And if you remember, when we're declining, we always get two parts of the noun. We get amicus up here, amici, friend. And remember that first part that we get amicus is the nominative singular, and the second part, amici, is the genitive singular. And when we're declining our noun, we always want to go to our genitive singular to get the stem, that second part we're given up here in blue. And what we do is we go to that and we drop off the I, and that gives us our stem for all of our endings. And as you can see here, written over and over again, our stem is AMIC. And to this, we're going to add our second declension endings, which are brand new, and you're going to have to memorize. So going from singular to plural, we have amicus, amici, amico, amicum, amico, amici, amicorum, amicis, amicos, amicis. And you're going to need to start memorizing these endings. Now, the second declension masculine also has several irregulars, but if you follow your rules and you always go to that second principal part, the genitive singular, to get your stem, these irregulars won't really matter that much, because the only thing that will truly be irregular is that nominative singular up here in black. So remember, we go to the blue part here, the genitive singular. To get our stem, we drop off the I's, and this gives us our stem for all of these nouns. So for agi or agri, it's agr, puer, pueri, puer, weir, weary, vir. And all you do to these is add your normal endings. So even though the nominative singular is a little irregular, you're going to add all of the same endings you would normally to these stems. As we said before, second declension nouns occur in two genders. Now we're going to take a look at the neuter. And here's our first word, verbum verbi, which is the Latin word for word. Kind of ironic. Anyway, note that verbum in the nominative singular ends in um, as opposed to our second declension masculine nouns, which end in us in the nominative singular. That'll be the difference. But to get our stem, we're still going to go to the genitive singular up here in blue, and we're going to follow our same pattern. We go to the genitive singular, we drop off our I, and that gives us our stem, which is verb. And to that stem, we're going to add our second declension neuter endings, which are slightly different than our second declension masculine endings. So you're going to have to memorize these two. So now let's look at the difference here. Note that the nominative and accusative singular repeat, and the nominative and accusative plural repeat. They have the same endings. So the nominative singular is verbum, the accusative singular is verbum, the nominative plural is verba, and the accusative plural is verba also. This is a pattern that all neuter nouns will follow. The nominative and accusative will be identical. Now let's look at the masculine and neuter of the second declension side by side so we can truly see the difference. On the left we have amicus, amici, friend. On the right we have verbum, verbi, word. Note that our endings are almost identical. There's only three places where they vary. The first is the nominative singular, and this is how you tell the difference between the masculine and the neuter. Note that a nominative masculine word will end in us, a nominative neuter word in And then the other two differences are down in the plural. The nominative and accusative are different. In the masculine you have an I ending in the nominative plural, in the neuter an A. In the accusative, in the masculine you have an OS ending, and in the neuter you have that A again. Alright, time for a little practice. On the left you have 4 Latin nouns. The directions are to give the gender, case, and number of each of the nouns. Remember, because these are not occurring in a sentence, some of these nouns may be in multiple cases. So now would be a great time to pause the recording to give yourself a few minutes to work these out. Alright, let's go over these. Number 1, Bella is neuter, nominative or accusative plural. Number 2, Puero is masculine, dative or ablative singular. Number 3, Werebis is neuter, dative or ablative plural. Now remember, for these first 3, they fall under multiple cases, and that can only happen when you see the words alone like this. If these words were to occur in a sentence, you could use context clues to figure out which case they actually fall under. And finally, we have nuntiorum, which is masculine, genitive, plural. So let's talk about our takeaways for this lesson. We should be familiar with declining nouns by now because we've already seen the first declension, which is primarily female nouns. Now we're in the second declension, which is masculine and neuter nouns. So what you need to do, of course, is memorize all of your endings and familiarize yourselves with the difference between the masculine and the neuter. Enjoy!